Welcome back to the channel. I do have a little project I want to get done today for just moving along the process here on the car. But I wanted to talk to you guys about something first. The other day when I was out here and got the head off of here, I just made a quick look at the piston, saw it broke around the rim, so just immediately went to the rings busted, right? You know, the rings closed up and then caused the piston to bust. Well, after editing the video and actually listening to myself talk, I kept saying the piston's charred, or the cylinder wall's charred, and the cylinder head's charred. So, got to looking at it, and you know, it looks more, it melted the piston to it right there. So, I'm not 100% sold that the piston rings closed up and caused the damage. I'm leaning towards timing or fuel. Now, when I get that piston out, we can take a better look at it. But I'm not thinking that the piston rings are the issue. So as far as timing goes, I know that from my lack of education with the FiTech that I made a mistake. I found out the other day. So what you have to do with these is lock the computer. So you'll go in there and it'll say lock for base timing. So you lock it, set the base timing at 30, and then you unlock it, and then the FiTech controls the timing. Well, what I didn't do is whenever I went into there, you can toggle back and forth between lock and unlock. When I set it to lock, I did not hit the send to ECU button. So it didn't actually lock the computer. So I was at 30 degrees base timing, and probably going down the track, I was probably like in the neighborhood of 40 degrees timing. So that's a big concern of mine. That's not good. We're only pushing 5 pounds of boost, but it's still not good. My second thought is fuel and cylinder to cylinder distribution. So with all carbureted intake manifolds like we're using, it's the air gap. But with all intake manifolds with carburation, or in my case, throttle body EFI, the cylinder to cylinder distribution is not that great. So I've been watching a lot of engine masters, and you can see one cylinder will have 10-to-1 air fuel ratio, and another one will have like 13.5 or something. It's like really far off. And for me, there's no way that I can monitor that. I'm using truck exhaust manifolds, and you can't put like a big O2 bung in every single one of them things. And I would say it's probably hard to even check them with a temperature gauge. So like a laser pointer, because you have the two, say 2 and 4 and 5 and 7 are adjoining, so you can't get a good temperature reading off of those. But that's one of the concerns I have. The intake manifold not distributing fuel evenly, and I have been unable to find an air gap intake cylinder to cylinder fuel distribution dyno test, or something with somebody having O2s on all of them. I hadn't been able to find one. But another thing somebody mentioned in the comments was the air hat on the throttle body being too short. I have the bigger one in the house. I just don't think it'll clear the hood. That's why I use the shorter one. I do not know if that's a factor or not. Once you start adding all this turbo stuff, and you know, you're just adding more variables, hat sizes, and whatever. So anyway, lots of variables. So that's what's running through my head as far as the damage goes. I'm leaning towards fuel or spark. Now, the Cometic gaskets, I looked around, nobody's got them in stock. Summit Racing, some other places, and in fact, Cometic's website says 6 to 8 weeks on their website. A lot of guys on the comment section said I could reuse these head gaskets, so probably end up doing that. Also, I have a Torker intake in my shed, a single plane, and it's for the LA. So I contacted 2 different places this morning about a jig or like Hughes, they said something about they were going to build a jig and sell it to the public so that the public could drill their own bolts in their heads for using the LA intake manifold. I contacted them this morning. They're not doing that. They're not renting one out, nothing. There's a company that's in Florida that does machine shop work, that is a parts distributor also for Hughes. So they sell their cylinder heads, their cams and stuff. I sent them an email, I hadn't heard back. So I might try to end up going to a single plane intake. The other option is one of the M1s, but they're like 700 bucks. So not sure if I'm gonna change the intake manifold at this point, but it's a thought running through my head for fuel distribution. Now moving on to repairing the engine. I'd mentioned the 318. You know, I've got the 318 sitting over here, and I really didn't like that idea. A lot of people said just pull a piston and put in the 360, gap the rings, put a new piston in it, put it back together. In fact, that was like the #1 comment. Just put a piston in it and put it back together. But since I've had such a bad run-in with this engine, it's just been fighting me since day one. The engine on the stand was a known, I say known, I bought that engine about 7 years ago from a record driver. He said he took it out of a wrecked vehicle, a wrecked truck. So over the years, that thing's lost some parts. I took the cylinder heads and robbed the valves out of them, put the valves on the cylinder heads on that truck, and the heads are still in the shed with no valves in them. But I think that's a good core, and what I'm gonna do now, go ahead and drag it out. I need to clean up the garage, it's driving me crazy. And also something else, I've got to organize this. I've got 3 engines that's gonna be apart, and then I've got 2 engine stands. So I'm gonna have to plan this all out pretty good and not make a mess in the garage. But what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and pull the 360 out, and I ordered a piston ring filer, and it's not gonna be here until like another week. Hopefully it'll come faster than that. I don't know, it says it's a week out. But I'm gonna pull this thing out, go ahead and pull the rods and pistons out of it. Let's take a look at it, see if we're gonna use this block and this whole rotating assembly. If I wasn't clear on some of that, the 318 project going into the red truck, I still want to see that done. That's why I don't really want it in the car, because I want the big cam and the ported heads on the 318 and see what it does. And I want to keep on track with the 360 and the turbo in the car. So if I didn't make that clear before, I apologize. But here I have the 360. One piston is already out. It's still out from one of the other videos. You can see 360 dish piston. And that's on the other side. 360. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and number these and take them all out. Check the journals. This one already, I can see, has decent wear on it. So we'll see. Let's get it apart and look at it. Pistons and rods are out, and you can see, I showed you a few, but this bearing fell out, so it's got enough wear that it was just loose in the hole. But the rest of them, you see right there, it's just got some wear, so I really don't want to reuse those. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the crankshaft, see what it looks like. As far as the journals go, they're all perfectly fine. And then we're gonna roll it over, take a look at our cylinders, see what they look like. I think the crankshaft's gonna be in good shape, I hope. want to show you these journals right here, and then we're going to look at the bearings. But these journals look good. I did measure the rods already, and the rod journals, all of them are within spec, but all the rods and main journals look good. Now, with the exception of the thrust, I don't know, it's almost like a buildup on there. It doesn't, feels like a buildup, or it's just wearing on these edges here. Anyway, the bearings look pretty good. I mean, they're not terrible, not like the rod bearings. So I already have rod bearings, but I don't have 360 main bearings. So what do you guys think? Should we go ahead and nail this thing back together? Gap the rings, put rod bearings in it? I don't know. It's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Rod bearings, gap factory pistons, flex hone the cylinder walls, leave the main bearings, so stock main bearings, stock rings that are gapped, new rod bearings. Got us a flashlight and check these cylinder walls, see what they look like. Actually feel like they're better than the 318. Hopefully that's a good view for you guys. There's one cylinder right here that's unhappy, like he might have got some water in him or something, but for the most part these things look good. So, well, there we have it. Bad rod bearings, decent main bearings, really decent cylinder walls, and the only thing I haven't checked is cam bearings. So let me take this off and check cam bearings. Not sure what it is, but every time I look at cam bearings in one of these, they have these little pits in them, and hopefully you can see it, but there's just little chips in it. That's not good. They're not expensive, it's just I don't have the tool. I borrowed it and that thing is already shipped back, so don't know. Well, with projects things change all the time, so I think we have a good block here, and I think, just like I said, gap the rings, hone the cylinders, put some rod bearings, leave the main bearings. If I can get the tool, we'll do the cam bearings, and then I think that'll be a good block for us. This one that everybody says put a piston in, the bottom end hadn't been apart. I have no idea what the bearings look like, the rods or the mains, so that's one reason I want to do this one. But what else? As far as the top end, I might go ahead and pull this engine after the 360 is done here and put the short block in until I feel comfortable that I figured out the problem, why number 5 cylinder busted, and that I have that resolved, because I don't want to have another problem. But probably leave the cylinder heads off, just put the short block in and go from there. Also put the 318 camshaft in there, because it has about 10 thousandths more lift than the stock 360 camshaft, so not much difference, but it's something. And I think that's gonna do it. If y'all have any comments, assistance, put it in the comments. And hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope y'all are still enjoying the build. See y'all next time.